Russell Kirk, The Conservative Mind, From Burke to Eliot. Welcome to the captivating world of The Conservative Mind, From Burke to Eliot by Russell Kirk. This illuminating book examines the history, principles, and foundations of conservatism as a political and social philosophy. As you journey through these pages, you'll discover how conservative thought has its roots in strong religious beliefs and acknowledgement of intellectual and individual differences. You'll gain insight into the conservative stance on democracy, the connection between property and power, the natural aristocracy, and the careful management of societal changes.
The conservative belief in God's influence. The conservative movement began with Edmund Burke's reflections on the Revolution in France, which made people aware of conservative arguments. The movement believes in a higher power, usually the Christian God, who manifests in our actions. Conservatives believe that God's will can be seen through human history, and every action that endures the test of time is an expression of God's will. For conservatives, God's influence extends over all our actions, providing a higher moral order even in business contracts, reminding us of the importance of a higher power in our lives. The harmful idea of equality. In his book on the French Revolution, Edmund Burke challenges the notion of equality. While it's true that people have distinguishing features that affect their lives, the concept of everyone being equal is harmful and even deceptive. Conservatives recognize that acknowledging these differences is critical as it gives people a realistic view of life and prevents false hope. For instance, telling a mediocre actor that he has the same chance of winning an Oscar as a talented actor is misleading and will only lead to disappointment. This idea also applies to the soil, which is well suited for some plants and not for others, despite being made of the same earth. Disregarding the reality of differences in people's abilities and circumstances is the foundation of conservative thought. The book delves deeper into how this belief shapes conservatives' views on democracy. Striving for absolute equality. The book argues that conservatives view striving for absolute equality as misguided and dangerous. Instead, progress comes from a desire to achieve a better-than-average life which is only possible within equality. Ability, not just work, is important in driving progress and creating inequality. In systems with absolute equality, there is no incentive for individuals to use their abilities to the fullest as there is no reward for doing so. This can lead to frustration and a lack of progress for everyone, not just those with abilities. It is therefore important to understand that absolute equality is not desirable as it stifles progress. The role of leadership in a society. In this book, the concept of equal society and natural aristocracy is discussed. An equal society, where there is no societal group with more power or influence than others, is deemed an impossible and undesirable society by conservatives. They believe that people need leaders, and some individuals are better suited to lead than others. Conservatives believe in a natural aristocracy, where a smaller leading class develops within society to lead the larger group. Without such leadership, society is left with natural equality, which for conservatives translates to savagery and constant danger with no institution providing security for the masses. According to early conservative thinker John Adams, many factors aside from birth can play a role in determining why people might follow a certain leader. In essence, an aristocrat is just the name conservatives give to an individual who is, by virtue of his abilities, well suited to lead others. A conservative view on democracy. Some conservatives have reservations about the democratic system as they believe that it values equal involvement over good governance. They argue that the representation of important interests is uncertain when left to the majority because the majority may not know what's important. Instead, they propose that the public is represented, and the government functions well. Different societal groups in democratic systems are not represented according to their significance, but instead by their voting power. This means groups that are crucial to a properly functioning society can be outvoted when their numbers are small, leading to potential long-term financial ruin for the government. Conservative British Prime Minister George Canning summed up this point succinctly when he said that men shouldn't seek to govern themselves, but instead, seek to be governed well. Property and power. In this book, the author explores how property and power are intertwined and how democracy fails to consider this. The possession of property has always been closely linked to power, and those who have access to the most land often hold the most power in society. Leaders concerned about the power their subjects gain through property could seize that property and bequeath it to other, more loyal subjects, but they couldn't destroy the power inherently attached to the property. This notion of property being connected to power should be adequately represented in government, especially in the less populated but necessary areas crucial for food production. The author examines how conservatives view democracy as merely a form of nose-counting that disregards the things in society that truly matter. The final sections explore how a conservative would go about changing things to suit their ideology. The book argues that it is impossible to separate property and power and how both should be considered in the governmental framework. The limitations of numbers. In today's world, we are obsessed with numbers and measurements. However, can we truly capture human behavior using numerical values and formulas? Conservatives argue that it is impossible to do so, as humans are too complex to be summarized in such a manner. Calculations oversimplify human activity and lead to overlooked important aspects or surprises when people behave differently than predicted. Utilitarians believe that assigning values to joy and pain can provide the best possible solution to a situation. However, this often conflicts with conservative moral beliefs. History has proven time and time again that predictions based on calculations are often wrong. For instance, Edmund Burke's criticisms of the revolutionaries during the French Revolution were proven correct, as the revolution ended in mass trials and executions. In conclusion, while numbers and formulas can be useful in some situations, they have their limitations and cannot fully capture the essence of human behavior. The conservative approach to social change. The conservative ideology is often misunderstood as being resistant to change. However, conservatives understand that change is inevitable and necessary. They believe that any societal change should be well-planned and gradual, in order to prevent chaos and maintain stability. Conservatives value the preservation of principles that have stood the test of time and have been built over generations. They believe that abrupt change could disrupt the social contract, causing mistrust and uncertainty. Conservatives prefer guiding social movements rather than halting them, allowing for moderate and controlled change. This approach has been successful in Britain, where the strong Conservative Party resisted sudden changes and prevented violent revolutions. In summary, conservatives strive for long-term, controlled progress rather than hasty and potentially disruptive transformation.
As we conclude our exploration of the conservative mind, we come away with a deeper understanding of the conservative mindset, which is firmly grounded in strong religious beliefs and human differences. Acknowledging the influence of a higher power, conservatives reject the idea of absolute equality, instead embracing the natural variations in abilities and talents. They are cautious about democracy, favoring stable, well-functioning government over equal representation. Conservatives recognize the connection between property and power and advocate for organic, well-guided social change instead of abrupt upheaval. Armed with the wisdom gained from this thought-provoking book, you are now better equipped to engage in discussions and debates on conservatism and its relevance in today's modern society.